The story begins in the isolated peaks of the mountains, where the air is crisp and the silence is profound. The mountain man, named Harlan, has lived here for decades, estranged from society due to past betrayals and losses. His cabin is simple, constructed of rough-hewn logs with smoke curling from a stone chimney. Life here is harsh. Survival depends on hunting, fishing, and the meager crops he can cultivate on the rocky soil. Though he appears gruff and intimidating to anyone who might encounter him, Harlan is a man shaped by solitude, resilient and self-reliant. One cold autumn morning, Harlan descends from the mountains toward a nearby village to trade furs for essential supplies. He moves cautiously, wary of strangers, preferring the shadowed paths and the quiet corners of the village streets. As he walks past the town square, he notices a woman huddled near a fountain. Her clothes are tattered, her hair tangled and unwashed, and her face streaked with dirt. She is visibly exhausted, her posture slumped, yet she watches the world around her with alert eyes, as if she has learned to survive by being cautious and observant. Curiosity, though rarely expressed by him, compels Harlan to approach. He kneels down a few feet from her, keeping his distance but signaling he means no harm. "You look lost," he says in his deep, gravelly voice. The woman flinches slightly, instinctively shrinking back, but does not flee. She has encountered men before, and most have treated her with suspicion, cruelty, or condescension. Yet something about Harlan's presence, his quiet strength, his lack of aggression makes her pause. "I'm not worth much, sir," she says hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I can cook." There is a strange dignity in her admission, an honesty that comes from desperation, but also from pride in the one skill she possesses. Harlan is intrigued. He has survived long in the mountains, but he has learned that humans, when isolated, begin to crave connection and assistance in small, meaningful ways like a warm meal. The woman introduces herself as Mara, though she adds little about her past. Her story is patchy. She had a home once, a family she lost to misfortune, and circumstances that forced her to the streets. The details are painful, and her voice trembles slightly as she recalls moments of hunger, cold, and fear. Harlan listens without interruption. In this encounter, silence carries as much weight as words. Harlan, too, carries his own history of loss and solitude, though he rarely shares it with anyone. Harlan observes her closely, noting the strength beneath her fragile exterior. Cooking is a humble skill, yet it is one that reflects care, patience, and a nurturing instinct. In his solitary existence, Harlan rarely experiences these small comforts. Most of his meals are simple dried meat, river fish, wild root spot. He has always remembered how a well-prepared meal can restore more than just physical strength. It can revive the spirit. Mara's offer to cook touches something deep within him, a reminder of the human warmth he has long denied himself. Despite his mistrust of others, Harlan feels a rare spark of connection. There is no immediate pressure to decide anything. He does not offer her a permanent home yet, but he acknowledges her courage. Mara, sensing the unspoken possibility of safety, hopes this encounter might be the turning point in her life. She has survived by hiding, by begging, and by moving from place to place. Meeting Harlan feels like a chance to finally step out of fear and into trust, though it is tentative. The tension of this first meeting is quiet but palpable. Harlan's solitude is a shield, a protective barrier against disappointment and betrayal. Mara's vulnerability is a bridge, fragile yet persistent, inviting him to consider companionship for the first time in years. The mountain man, who is accustomed to relying solely on his own strength, begins to wonder if there is value in letting someone into his world. Mara's declaration, "I can cook," is deceptively simple. It is a statement of capability. a plea for trust, and an offering of partnership. Harlan senses all of this and is moved, though he does not yet fully comprehend the significance. This outline ends with Harlan returning to his mountain cabin, thinking about Mara. He considers her offer seriously. The mountains are silent witnesses to his thoughts. He wonders if extending kindness to a stranger might risk disappointment, but also if isolation has dulled his understanding of human connection. Mara, meanwhile, rests that night in a shelter, contemplating whether this mountain man represents hope or another fleeting encounter. The meeting between Harlan and Mara is small but profound, an encounter that will eventually shape both of their lives in unexpected ways. The first outline emphasizes introduction and character depth. The reader understands the stark contrast between the solitary mountain man and the struggling homeless woman. It sets the stage for the development of trust, mutual dependence, and eventual companionship, all grounded in realistic emotional and physical settings. The emphasis on cooking is symbolic a metaphor for nurturing, for rebuilding, and for the simplest acts of care that can transform lives. The morning after their encounter, Harlan awakens to the crisp mountain air and the sound of birds flitting among the pines. Thoughts of Mara linger in his mind, her quiet voice repeating, "I can cook." He reflects on the unusual offer of companionship, something he has not considered in decades. Harlan's life in the mountains has been rigidly structured. Every day revolves around survival tasks, checking traps, hunting, gathering firewood, and tending the small garden patch he has coaxed from the rocky soil. Yet beneath this disciplined routine lies an awareness of loneliness, a shadow that Mara's presence illuminates. Despite his initial hesitation, Harlan decides to act. He returns to the village briefly, gathering supplies that might make a stranger's arrival easier: fresh bread, dried meats, and a few simple tools. He approaches Mara with a direct, practical offer. "Come with me. You can stay for a while. You help with the cooking, and I'll give you shelter." His tone is firm, but there is an underlying softness, an openness that surprises even him. Mara hesitates. She has been betrayed, ignored, and used in the past. Trust does not come easily. Yet there is a quiet sincerity in Harlan's demeanor, a reliability that feels rare and worth taking a risk for. The journey to the mountains is both physically and emotionally significant. Mara, weak from hunger and exposure, leans on Harlan's arm as they climb rugged trails. Along the way, he observes her carefully, noting how she navigates the terrain with a mix of caution and determination. Her resilience is evident in small gestures. She steadies herself on rocky paths, adjusts her clothing to ward off the cold, and carefully carries the supplies they have gathered. These moments are unspoken lessons for Harlan. He begins to recognize her not as a burden but as a capable, resourceful partner. Arriving at Harlan's cabin, Mara is struck by the simplicity and isolation of his home. It is small but sturdy, with a stone fireplace and hand-hewn furniture. Sunlight filters through the cracks in the wooden walls, casting patterns on the floor. For Mara, this is a sanctuary, a stark contrast to the chaos and hostility she has endured in the village. She instinctively begins assessing the space for tasks: sweeping, stacking firewood, and preparing the hearth for cooking. Harlan, observing silently, appreciates her initiative. He is not accustomed to domesticity or shared responsibility, but her presence starts to fill the quiet void that has long surrounded him. The first meal they prepare together is simple but transformative. Mara uses wild herbs, dried vegetables, and the few meats Harlan provides to make a hearty stew. The aroma fills the cabin, warming the small space both physically and emotionally. Harlan, accustomed to eating cold, plain food, is struck by the care and attention Mara pours into her cooking. They sit across from each other in silence, sharing the meal. It is not just nourishment for the body. It is the beginning of a shared routine, a symbolic act of connection. For Mara, cooking is her expression of agency and worth. For Harlan, it is a reminder that life, even in isolation, can include joy and comfort. As days pass, their alliance evolves into a tentative partnership. They establish a rhythm. Harlan hunts and gathers, Mara cooks and tends to the cabin. She proves resourceful, suggesting ways to store food, mend clothing, and make the space more livable. Harlan, initially skeptical of her abilities, begins to recognize her contributions as vital. Trust grows slowly, rooted in shared survival rather than words. Small gestures, a fire left ready for her to cook, a warm blanket provided without asking, communicate more than declarations of loyalty ever could. Challenges inevitably arise. Harsh weather tests their endurance. Heavy snowfall blocks paths, and frigid nights demand long hours tending the fire. Harlan's solitary instincts resurface. He occasionally withdraws, skeptical of relying on anyone. Mara, however, persists with quiet patience, demonstrating that her presence is not a fleeting convenience, but a steady support. Conflicts occur too, disagreements over food rationing or cabin chores, but they are resolved with negotiation rather than hostility. These challenges strengthen the bond, showing both that cooperation is not only necessary for survival but also enriching. Through these shared experiences, Harlan begins to reveal fragments of his past. He speaks sparingly about the losses that drove him into isolation, failed relationships, betrayals, and the death of a sibling he had cherished. Mara listens without judgment, offering understanding and empathy through her presence and actions. In turn, she shares her own history, carefully, revealing moments of vulnerability that build mutual trust. This exchange is slow and deliberate. They do not rush into intimacy or friendship, but allow the connection to grow organically through deeds and shared endurance rather than words alone. By the end of this outline, Mara and Harlan have established a fragile but meaningful bond. The cabin is no longer just a shelter. It is a shared home, a place where two wounded, solitary souls begin to find solace in each other. Mara's cooking has become more than a skill. It is a medium through which she communicates care and competence, gradually earning Harlan's respect and admiration. Harlan, in turn, provides stability, protection, and the possibility of a life that is less lonely. This outline emphasizes practical survival intertwined with emotional trust. It shows how cooperation, shared labor, and mutual respect can transform the relationship between two very different individuals. It also highlights the symbolic power of small, nurturing acts: cooking, preparing a home, tending a fire, as foundational gestures that build connection and intimacy. By focusing on daily routines, challenges, and small victories, the story grounds the reader in realism while developing a deep, emotionally resonant partnership. Life in the mountains continues, with Mara and Harlan navigating each day through a careful balance of labor, routine, and growing trust. Mara's cooking becomes more inventive. She uses wild herbs, berries, and mountain vegetables to create meals that are both nourishing and comforting. Harlan, who has long survived on simple sustenance, begins to notice not just the taste but the warmth and care infused in each dish. Food becomes a language of connection, an unspoken acknowledgement that they are no longer alone. Gradually, conversation between them deepens. At first, it is cautious, limited to practical matters: how to prepare the cabin for winter, which trails are safe to travel, or how to trap fish efficiently. Mara's curiosity about Harlan's past grows, but she does not press. She senses that trust is fragile and must be earned. Harlan, in turn, opens in small increments, revealing glimpses of a life shaped by solitude, heartbreak, and regret. He speaks of the sibling he lost to illness and the friends who betrayed him in his youth. His voice, usually reserved and guarded, softens as he shares these memories. Mara listens attentively, offering empathy through both words and deeds. She might brush snow off his coat without being asked, place a steaming cup of tea by the fire, or repair his worn boots while he rests. These small acts of care communicate understanding, respect, and patience, creating a sense of emotional safety. Mara herself begins to reveal moments of vulnerability, the loneliness of the streets, the fear of being abandoned again, and the shame of having once believed she was not worth much. Each story is shared carefully, each emotion acknowledged, creating a mutual understanding that neither is truly alone anymore. Their connection is not without tension. The mountain life is harsh, and both Harlan and Mara are creatures of habit. Occasional disagreements flare up over food, work distribution, or the handling of wildlife. Harlan, used to total independence, struggles to relinquish control, while Mara, protective of her dignity and past experiences, occasionally challenges his authority. These conflicts, however, are short-lived and ultimately reinforce their bond. They learn negotiation, compromise, and the value of expressing needs without fear. Slowly building trust that goes beyond survival. A defining moment in this outline is the crisis event, which tests their trust and emotional connection. Imagine a sudden blizzard that traps them in the cabin, cutting off access to food and supplies. The cold is brutal, winds howling through the mountains, threatening both life and cabin. Harlan initially reacts with frustration, worried about the immediate danger, while Mara responds with calm resourcefulness. She organizes the food ration, maintains the fire, and improvises insulation to protect them from the cold. Harlan observes her resilience and realizes that survival is not only about physical strength, but also about emotional and intellectual resourcefulness. Alternatively, the crisis could be an injury. Harlan might fall while hunting, twisting an ankle or cutting himself on a rock. Mara, though inexperienced in formal medical care, acts decisively, cleaning the wound, applying herbal remedies, and ensuring he rests. The roles reverse. For once, Harlan must rely entirely on another person. In this scenario, both characters confront their vulnerabilities directly. Learning that trust is not weakness but strength, a shared reliance that deepens their bond. Throughout this period, emotional intimacy flourishes. They share quiet nights by the fire, exchanging stories of childhood memories, lost dreams, and hopes for the future. Mara might speak of the family she once had, the friends who turned their backs on her, and the moments she felt invisible. Harlan reveals not only past betrayals but also fears of being hurt again, of losing someone to whom he has grown attached. In these conversations, laughter emerges alongside tears, warmth alongside the cold outside. Mara and Harlan begin to recognize that their connection is no longer merely practical, it is essential to their emotional survival. Symbolism plays an important role in this outline. Mara's cooking represents nurturing and creation, while Harlan's protective instincts embody stability and reliability. The mountain itself, harsh and isolating, mirrors the internal struggles each has faced: loneliness, mistrust, and fear. Yet, by facing these challenges together, they transform both the physical space of the cabin and the emotional landscape of their lives. Their bond becomes a fortress against the hardships of the world. Built from shared experience, vulnerability, and mutual respect. By the end of Outline 3, Harlan and Mara have moved from cautious partnership to profound emotional companionship. Trust has deepened into reliance. Shared vulnerabilities have fostered understanding and intimacy. Harlan no longer sees Mara as simply someone to feed and shelter, she is a companion, a confidant, and a source of emotional sustenance. Mara, in turn, no longer views Harlan as a distant and intimidating figure. He is a protector, a partner, and someone she can finally depend on. This outline emphasizes emotional growth and the forging of trust under adversity. The story demonstrates that connection is often built through small acts of care, shared struggles, and moments of vulnerability. By introducing a crisis, the narrative creates a pivotal turning point where the characters are forced to rely on one another fully, solidifying their bond and setting the stage for deeper intimacy and eventual love. By this point in the story, Mara and Harlan have developed a rhythm and trust in their shared mountain life. Daily routines, gathering firewood, preparing meals, hunting, and maintaining the cabin have become intertwined with moments of quiet observation and subtle emotional connection. Mara's cooking, once simply a survival skill, now becomes a source of warmth and delight for Harlan. The aroma of her meals evokes a sense of comfort that he has rarely felt. Likewise, Harlan's quiet, protective presence has given Mara a sense of safety and belonging that she has never experienced. These small, everyday gestures begin to take on deeper emotional significance, hinting at the romantic tension that is quietly building. Romantic tension often thrives in subtlety, and in this outline, it manifests through nuanced interactions. A glance held too long while passing food, a brush of hands while stacking firewood, or lingering near the hearth after completing a task creates moments charged with unspoken emotion. Mara, who has spent years believing she is not worth much, begins to notice that Harlan values her presence not for utility alone, but for her companionship, skill, and spirit. Harlan, who has long been hardened by solitude, realizes that he anticipates her presence, misses her absence, and feels a protective, almost possessive pride in her. Internal struggles emerge as both grapple with these newfound emotions. Harlan fears vulnerability. He has spent decades avoiding close attachment, associating it with inevitable pain. Mara fears rejection and loss. The streets have taught her that trust can be fleeting and emotional openness dangerous. Both wrestle with the question, is it worth risking the safety of their current companionship to confront their deeper feelings? These internal conflicts create tension for the reader, as every small interaction carries the potential for emotional revelation or awkward. MISSTEP, a pivotal device in this outline, is moments of unplanned intimacy, where circumstances force them into close proximity or shared vulnerability. For instance, a sudden rainstorm might trap them in the cabin, prompting them to huddle near the fire. The warmth of the flames, the close quarters, and the lingering scent of Mara's cooking ignite emotions that neither can ignore. They might exchange a shy glance, a brief touch, or even a hesitant smile, each small action carrying the weight of unspoken attraction. These intimate moments gradually erode their emotional defenses, making it increasingly difficult to dismiss the feelings that are developing. Another scenario could involve physical labor that fosters closeness. While repairing a broken roof or gathering firewood in deep snow, Harlan and Mara are forced to rely on each other physically. Their hands brush while passing tools or steadying one another on icy paths. Mara notices the strength in Harlan's arms, while he notices the grace and determination in her movements. The physicality of survival work, combined with shared trust, intensifies the emotional connection, transforming routine actions into moments of intimacy. This outline also explores the power of small gestures and care as expressions of growing love. Mara might leave a special meal ready for Harlan after a long hunting trip, or Harlan might bring her wildflowers or berries he noticed on the trail. These acts are not merely practical. They convey thoughtfulness, consideration, and the desire to make the other person's life more pleasant. Each gesture reinforces the unspoken emotional bond, showing that romance can be expressed in subtle, everyday acts rather than grand declarations. dialogue, and shared reflection deepen the tension. Harlan might speak in a rare moment of softness. "I don't often let anyone in, but I like having you here." Mara might respond with a mixture of relief and hesitation. "I never thought I'd feel safe or wanted anywhere." These exchanges reveal the internal struggles and growing attraction, conveying to the reader that love is emerging organically from trust, shared hardships, and mutual respect. The psychological aspect of their attraction is also important in this outline. Both Harlan and Mara begin to notice emotional cues in themselves, anticipation of seeing the other, concern for their well-being, and a sense of comfort that feels akin to love. Mara, who once viewed herself as not worth much, experiences a transformative realization. Someone values her for more than her skills. Someone appreciates her very being. Harlan, who has defined himself through independence, realizes that emotional connection enriches life in ways self-sufficiency never could. These insights mark the shift from mere companionship to romantic attraction. Finally, the outline includes a subtle climactic moment of tension without resolution, preparing the ground for the next stage of the story. Perhaps Mara hesitates as she reaches to help Harlan with a heavy task, and their hands touch for longer than necessary. Perhaps Harlan catches himself staring at Mara as she prepares a meal, heart quickened, unsure whether to speak or withdraw. These unspoken cues keep the reader engaged, building anticipation for the eventual acknowledgement of love. By the end of Outline 4, the reader sees that Mara and Harlan are no longer just companions or allies, they are emotionally invested in each other, aware of feelings that surpass friendship or survival needs. Romantic tension is palpable, expressed in gestures, glances, dialogue, and mutual care. The foundation for love has been laid, though both characters remain cautious, aware of past fears and potential emotional risk. This outline emphasizes the slow, natural evolution of romantic feelings within the context of survival, trust, and shared hardship. It highlights that romance can grow organically, expressed through small acts of care, physical closeness, emotional vulnerability, and subtle recognition of the other's value. By the end of this stage, readers are invested in the relationship and eagerly anticipate the moment when Mara and Harlan finally confront and declare their love. The culmination of Harlan and Mara's story is both emotionally satisfying and deeply transformative. By this stage, their relationship has been carefully built through shared survival, trust, vulnerability, and subtle romantic tension. They have endured storms, scarce supplies, and moments of personal doubt. Each hardship has strengthened their reliance on one another, creating a bond that surpasses friendship and dependency. It becomes love. Quiet but undeniable. The declaration of love begins with recognition. Harlan notices the depth of his feelings during a routine day, perhaps while Mara prepares a meal in the golden light of the late afternoon. He observes the way she moves, how her presence makes the cabin feel warm and alive, and the calm confidence she has brought into his solitary life. He realizes that the thought of her absence is unbearable. Mara, on her part, recognizes her attachment through the sense of safety, happiness, and belonging she feels with Harlan. The cabin, once a shelter against the harsh mountain environment, has become a sanctuary of emotional warmth and security. The story reaches its emotional peak through a pivotal, intimate moment. Imagine the scene. A blizzard rages outside, forcing them indoors. Harlan and Mara sit together near the fire, the room bathed in the flickering glow of flames. They exchange glances, both aware of the feelings that have grown over time, but neither willing to speak first. Mara reaches for Harlan's hand, and he does not pull away. Instead, he squeezes it gently, finally allowing the vulnerability he has resisted for so long to surface. This simple touch carries months of unspoken emotion. a mixture of relief, longing, and recognition. Dialogue at this stage is deliberate, tender, and revealing. Harlan may say something like, "I've lived too long alone, but I can't imagine being without you anymore." Mara, moved and reassured, responds, "I never thought I'd find a place where I belonged, or someone who truly saw me. That place is with you." This exchange, though brief, solidifies their emotional commitment. Words give form to feelings that have been present throughout their journey, and the reader experiences the catharsis of long-awaited recognition. The transformation is not only emotional but also practical. Mara, who once saw herself as not worth much, now understands her value not just through her cooking or survival skills, but through the love and companionship she offers. Harlan, once self-sufficient and solitary, discovers that connection enriches life more profoundly than independence alone. The cabin, once a refuge of solitude, now embodies the warmth, cooperation, and shared dreams of a partnership built on respect, love, and mutual support. Their life together evolves naturally from this point. Mara's role extends beyond cooking. She becomes Harlan's partner in decision-making, planning for the coming seasons and nurturing the land. Harlan, who has long relied only on himself, finds joy in mentoring Mara in hunting, tracking, and mountain survival while also learning from her innovative ideas and emotional insight. The two complement each other. Her compassion balances his pragmatism, his strength supports her courage. Together, they create a life that neither could have built alone. Symbolism is essential in this final outline. The mountain, once a symbol of isolation and hardship, now represents endurance, stability, and the heights achievable through shared effort. The cabin, once a utilitarian shelter, becomes a home, a place of warmth, love, and hope. Mara's cooking, previously a simple skill to survive, now serves as a symbol of care, creativity, and emotional expression. Harlan's protective nature, once focused only on survival, transforms into nurturing care and emotional availability. These symbols reinforce the narrative's theme. Love transforms not only the heart, but the environment and life itself. The story also emphasizes the healing power of love. Both characters carry scars from the past, Harlan from betrayal and loss, Mara from homelessness, fear, and neglect. Their connection allows them to confront these wounds and begin to heal. Mara learns to trust, to feel worthy, and to envision a future beyond mere survival. Harlan learns to embrace vulnerability, to care deeply, and to appreciate the joy of shared life. This healing is gradual, rooted in daily acts of kindness, shared challenges, and finally, the acknowledgement of love. By the end of this outline, their life together is fully established. They may dream of small improvements to the cabin, perhaps planting a garden, building a small stable, or preparing for future seasons together. They share quiet moments, laughing over a meal, observing wildlife, or gazing at the stars from the porch. Their love is steady, not a sudden infatuation, but a profound bond forged through time, trust, and trials. Mara is no longer homeless. Harlan is no longer alone. Together, they have created a life defined by warmth, connection, and purpose. This conclusion emphasizes emotional and practical fulfillment. Love is portrayed as transformative, grounded in shared experience and mutual respect rather than instant attraction. It shows how two people, each with a history of hardship and loss, can build a life of stability, happiness, and emotional depth. The ending provides closure while celebrating the power of companionship, resilience, and human connection.